2020 is finally over and thankfully we're finally seeing the back of it. There's no denying it's been an absolutely awful year, and the less said about it the better. We've all been spending much more time at home and many people have been falling back in love with gaming. So thankfully there's been plenty of amazing games released this year. Some of them we've been waiting absolute years for. Heck, we've even had a couple of next-gen consoles launching, though it would have been nice if you could actually find one. But anyway, with this year out the way, it's time to do the traditional top 10 games of the year. We've seen a lot of great titles this year, so without further ado, let's begin. Starting off at number 10, we have Doom Eternal. Originally set to launch in November last year, Doom Eternal saw a delay to early 2020, and thankfully the delay was worth it, as Eternal was a pure and utter thrill ride from start to finish. Following the continuing adventures of the non-nonsense Doom guy as the forces of hell have brought the fight to Earth, it's time to bring in the big guns, as like the original game, Doom Eternal is pretty much more the same, but expanded with new abilities and mechanics. Getting into combat is utterly fantastic and feels like a dangerous dance of guns and monsters, as you have to constantly keep on the move, and the bloody and brutal glory kills make a triumphant return. The game's many levels are superbly designed, with so many secrets and collectibles, and most importantly, monsters to defeat. There's also a great amount of verticality here, as there's a lot of platforming. Multiplayer is also included, but overall I'm not keen on that, but it is here if you're into that sort of thing. Overall, Doom Eternal is a complete blast with so many incredibly enjoyable moments, and it's easily one of the best first-person shooters of this generation, and a must-buy that's real cheap right now. At number 9, we have Crash Bandicoot 4, It's About Time. The return of Crash Bandicoot in 2017 marked a new period for Activision. It brought the 90s classic mascot back, as well as a slew of remasters that have won over a whole new generation of fans. And this plan has finally come full circle with the first new entry in the Crash Bandicoot series since Mind Over Mutant in 2008. It's About Time is a direct sequel to Warp, the last game in the original Naughty Dog trilogy, and this one follows the same gameplay style, featuring a whole host of new playable characters from the Crash series, including Cortex and Dingo Doll, to name but a few. The game's 100 plus levels are incredibly detailed, lengthy affairs that feel like real journeys, and deliver so many cool new ideas and mechanics thanks to the quantum masks. When the game was announced to be a full £50 price title, I was a bit worried, but rest assured, It's About Time is chock-a-block full of content and things to do, and so many collectibles to nab to get that elusive 106% will take you a very long time. It's About Time's a highly accomplished platformer that at times is fiendishly difficult, and also marks an exciting time for the series, and I can't wait to see where Crash and hopefully Spyro goes next. At number 8, we have Tony Hawk Pro Skater 1 and 2. Activision has really done a 180 in this generation, diving deep into their back catalogue of old IPs. It started off with Crash, and the latest of these remakes is the triumphant return of Tony Hawk Pro Skater, remaking the first two games from the ground up with various new gameplay improvements and a wonderful new graphical engine. This is high score chasing perfection. Going back to the warehouse feels like returning home. Each of the game's classic areas have seen a whole new breath of life, with some lovely nods to older entries. The controls are pitch perfect, and pulling off the various moves are complete joy and a real ease to pull off. There's a bucket load of stuff to do and unlock, and there's plenty of reasons to return time after time again to this game. Pro Skater 1 and 2 Remake feels like a nostalgic trip back to the 90s, a true return to form for the franchise, and along with a real kicking soundtrack, this is easily one of the most addictive, replayable and highly enjoyable games of the year, and I can't wait to see where this series goes next. At number 7, we have Hyrule Warriors Age of Calamity. As we all know, Breath of the Wild is one of the most memorable and highly rated titles on the Switch, and it launched the Switch era off in style with a truly special adventure. And whilst we wait for its highly anticipated sequel, Nintendo announced Hyrule Warriors Age of Calamity out of the blue, a prequel set before the events of Breath of the Wild, and for a prequel it works really well. It means we can spend more time with these beloved and iconic characters, as well as getting a load more clues of what actually happened during the Great Calamity. The game's story certainly goes out there later on, but overall it's a nice tale that is apparently canon. As for the gameplay, it's an over-the-top action game that plays like a Warriors game, and whilst it may not be for some, it's an utterly enjoyable power fantasy. There's a lot to do here with a lengthy story mode and plenty of side missions, and there's a decent amount of playable characters that all feel incredibly different and unique to play. Before you go jumping in, don't go expecting a Breath of the Wild type game, and Hyrule Warriors Age of Calamity will deliver, as it's a wonderful stopgap whilst we wait for a sequel. It's easily the best Warriors game out there, and it does tell a very enjoyable story. It's a must buy for Switch owners. At number 6, we have Yakuza, Like a Dragon. The Yakuza franchise has really made a name for itself during this generation. Once it was a niche little series that would be lucky to see an entry come to the West. Now it's pretty popular with plenty of fans. So after many mainline games with series protagonist Kazuma Kiryu and that iconic combat, it would seem daft for developers RGG Studios to ditch these things. And yet, that's what they done with Like a Dragon. Acting more like a reboot, Like a Dragon sees us with a new leading man called Ichiban, an incredibly likeable guy who's been trying to make his life back after spending 15 years in prison for a crime he didn't commit. Throughout his journey, you'll assemble a ragtag group of lovable, down on their luck individuals who are all endearing and bring a lot of heart to the game. Its other big changes in its combat. Gone is the brawler type combat, instead now we have a turn-based style RPG which plays tribute quite often to the Dragon Quest series. And whilst it does take a little bit time to get going, the RPG mechanics are in depth and very enjoyable. Like a Dragon is a bold new step for the franchise and a truly wonderful RPG with so much character and charm. It reinvents the series so well with some fantastic new characters and a lovely new location. If you've been interested in the series for a while but didn't know when to jump in, this is the perfect time, and for fans this is another utterly essential entry in this truly underrated franchise. At number 5, we have Persona 5 Royal. Back in 2017, Persona 5 delivered one of the best JRPG titles of this generation. It was incredibly stylized with a truly unforgettable cast of characters, and after 3 years, Persona 5 arrived back this year with an expanded version called Royal. Persona 5 Royal is much more than just a re-release with a small amount of content. It feels like a whole new title with an incredibly generous amount of new things added, from a whole new semester that expands on the game's ending, as well as a new Phantom Thief in Kazumi, as well as some new side characters that effortlessly fit into the game. There's a boatload of quality of life improvements, a hefty new area to explore, new challenges, mini-games and extras to get stuck into, and this is on top of all the already outstanding base game. If you haven't played Persona 5 before, then this is a must-buy without any shadow of a doubt. And even if you've completed the original release, there's still plenty here to keep fans happy. Royal is the best JRPG on the PS4 at the moment, and a must-buy. At number 4, we have Final Fantasy VII Remake. Easily one of the most beloved games of all time, Final Fantasy VII has brought hours of joy and fond memories to millions of gamers across the globe. And when the remake was announced all the way back in 2015, it got fans very excited. And after years of waiting and trailers, we finally got our hands on it this year with the first part of what looks to be a multi-game series, a modern retelling of this incredibly important game. This title is just based on the Midgard part of the original game, a section that in the original title took only about 10 hours to complete, but here everything has been completely expanded upon greatly to make for an adventure that could take you upwards of 30 hours to complete. It's truly jaw-dropping how much has been done to this title. It all feels modernised but still having that feeling and heart of the original. The combat has been changed, gone is the turn-based combat of the original, and here we have a real-time combat similar to that of Final Fantasy XV, but thankfully it feels way more strategic and incredibly enjoyable. It's also absolutely gorgeous to boot, breathing new life into a classic. Whilst I and many other people certainly did have their doubts whether Square Enix would pull it off, thankfully Final Fantasy VII Remake is one of these rare occasions where a game lived up to its hype and more, with a masterful effort, and I really can't wait to see where the rest of the game series will be expanded. At number 3, we have Animal Crossing New Horizons. This year has been well known for the year that many of us have been apart, but there's been one game that's been trying to get us all together, and that is Animal Crossing New Horizons, a game that frankly launched at a perfect time, delivering a bit of normality during this strange time. New Horizons is a fantastic new entry in the ever-popular Animal Crossing series. This time it sees your own villager as they jet off to a deserted island, and it's your job to turn this island into a bustling community. Starring a whole host of colourful, charismatic and lovable cast of animal characters as your neighbours, it's a truly delightful experience. The ability to edit your island as you wish by building new amenities, adding new furniture and decorations to make your island your own is great. But where the game really does come into its own is when you visit a friend's island and explore their own creation, or allow them to come over to yours. It's a must-have Switch title that you could easily spend hundreds of hours on, and a rather important and special title that is without doubt the best Switch game of this year. At number 2, we have The Last of Us Part 2. After years of teasing, hype and brilliant trailers, The Last of Us Part 2 finally arrived in 2020, and for the most part it did deliver a memorable time. This time we play as Ellie as she set out on a revenge mission in Seattle. It's a story that's incredibly dark and unsettling. And whilst the story doesn't go down the road I wish it did, it does tell a gripping story that has plenty of memorable moments. But when it comes to the gameplay, The Last of Us Part 2 delivers an absolutely brutal, intense combat system that is utterly fantastic. Gameplay feels hefty, and there's plenty of different ways to dispatch the many foes in your path. Seattle looks beautiful with some incredibly detailed and authentic looking environments that really capture the tragedy that happened to this world. It's an absolute technical tour de force as well, delivering an absolutely astounding game that pushes the PS4 to its limits, but runs flawlessly. There's certainly some issues here with both its story and the bloat to the length of the game, but there's no denying that this is easily one of the most technically impressive titles of the generation, and an absolute monster of a title that still makes you think long after the credits have rolled. And finally, at number 1, we have Ghost of Tsushima. Sucker Punch makes a comeback this year after quite a few years being quiet with Ghost of Tsushima. Set in Fujura, Japan, this gorgeous open world follows a young man called Jin Sakai as he tries to reclaim his island from invaders. It's a truly epic tale with a great cast of memorable characters. The game's open world of Tsushima is easily one of the most beautiful I've seen, with so many lush and vibrant areas. Ghost feels very much like a refined Assassin's Creed game with a very organic open world, and it feels just so great to explore, to find the many different activities that inhabit the world. Rushing through Tsushima on your horse feels incredibly epic, and the technical work here is amazing, considering that loading this huge game only takes a matter of seconds. Combat is a blast and feels like a spin on the Dark Souls formula. Upgrading Jin with new abilities make him feel deadlier than ever. It's awesome. Not only is it a fantastic start to what looks to be a new PlayStation franchise, but it's also a mighty fine swan song to the PS4 and ultimately my game of the year for 2020. And with that, the list is over. It's certainly been an interesting year for releases, and it was incredibly hard to decide what game would be my number 1. I hope you enjoyed the list. Do you agree or disagree with my list? Please tell me in the comments section down below what is your favourite game of the year. If you could like and subscribe, that would be fantastic. And as always, thank you for watching. Until next time, happy gaming. Bye.